Hey everybody, welcome to the Jim Masters Show Live Entertainment Lifestyle Talk Show series. How's everybody doing today? It's good to see all of your smiley faces, and we welcome you to our live show, our Entertainment Lifestyle Talk Show series. It's bringing back the lost art of conversation. This is not just an interview show. This is a talk show with entertainment, live interaction with our viewers. So you can comment live during our live chat. That's right. You can comment if you have questions, if you just want to say hi. You're live in chat right now. Of course, you can always comment later when this show is archived. You're watching the Jim Masters Show Live Entertainment Lifestyle Talk Show series on our YouTube channel. And we would absolutely love it if you subscribe to the YouTube channel, which is Jim Masters TV. That's right. We tried to make it easy. See, the name is Jim Masters, so we figured just add TV because I work in television and in radio. But if I added radio, that would have been too long. Jim Masters TV and radio and multimedia. And Jim Masters TV was easy enough. So that's the YouTube channel. Subscribe to it. Give it some our famous levity we talk about here on the show. And also click the notification bell so you never miss any of our live episodes of JMS Live and also our surprise pop-up shows and all kinds of cool things that we do here for you as we've been doing. This is show number, you ready? Hang on to your hats. This is 482. We have done 482 shows live just about 7 days a week since we launched this series, May of 2020. This is unbelievable. It's now September 2021 at the time of this show, but we archive and evergreen all of our shows. They're incredible, isn't it? Good to see everybody. Thanks for joining us again. Also, if you enjoy this episode or any of the episodes you see here on our series, we would love it if you give it a thumbs up, like on our YouTube channel, and drop us a comment. That would be fantastic. We would absolutely love that. We've got an amazing guest joining us from Santa Clarita in California. If you're familiar with Santa Clarita, it is an absolutely beautiful area. I actually have been there. I was on a TV shoot in that area. Our very special guest is Rodger Howard. Now, Rodger is a renowned television news photojournalist. He has been for many, many years, and he wrote this fantastic novel, which is really amazing. We're going to talk about it in just a second. It's called Focus, the almost 100% true tale of an intrepid news photographer. There's like nothing you've read before. This exciting novel is based on true life stories of an experienced news videographer named Ron Sharp. Ron's career has highs and lows, grinding boredom and heart-racing excitement, sometimes all in the same day. Beauty, heroism, tragedy, and evil, all part of the job. Covering horrendous, unthinkable stories, of course, can damage a person's psyche. And with someone like Ron, whose profession requires an artistically trained eye behind a video camera, exposure to real heartbreak and tragedy can be life-changing. So Ron realizes after years as a photojournalist, witnessing unimaginable events that most people will never see, that his experiences have taken a toll on him. And he attempts to grow a suit of armor to protect himself and those around him. And when a new romantic relationship springs up in his life, this becomes his biggest challenge of all, forcing him to assess his values and the precious nature of love and life itself. I won't tell you the rest because you want to get this book. It's riveting. It's incredible. And the author is, as I mentioned, the renowned Rodger Howard, who worked in television news for a long time in Los Angeles, California. He's a Long Island boy originally, like I am, from Long Island, New York, just east of New York City. And the book really is fantastic. And in just a second, we're going to welcome him to the show. First, why don't we say a quick hello to some of our viewers, since this is a talk show and a very interactive. Of course, we welcome you to the show. We say hello to all the lovelies watching around the world. And Linda is one of our lovely viewers. Good evening, Mr. Lovely. Good evening, lovelies. Good to see you as well. Linda, who's watching in Florida. Thank you very much. And of course, love it if you subscribe to the YouTube channel. Absolutely. Jane is watching in Sweden. She says, hello, everyone. And Jim, good to see you. Jane, always here with us late into the wee hours of the morning there in Sweden, watching us live right now worldwide. Alessandra is here from North Carolina saying hello. Good to see you as well. Sherry Larson is in the house from Kansas. She says, hi, everyone. and hi, Jane and Linda. Everybody says hello to each other. And they're all talking about how their day went and they're checking up with each other. That's kind of cool. It's like a coffee clutch, this show in the chat. You see all of the, I'm here and I baked a cake today and I knitted this and I did that and we got the oil changed in the car and everybody's talking about everybody here. Good to see everybody. Let's check in with a few more here. Christopher Joseph is here. Jane says, welcome, lovely Rodger. And Anne is in Southern California. She says, welcome, Rodger, as well. Alessandra is welcoming Rodger to the Jim Masters Show Live. We appreciate that as well. Let's see, a few more coming in here. I know, 482 episodes. Lovely love, Jim. That is amazing, isn't it? 482 episodes live 7 days a week. I don't know if you saw last night on Stephen Colbert, Reverend Steve Peters was talked about by actress Jessica Chastain. They had the premiere of the Eyes of Tammy Faye, that riveting new movie that's coming out about Tammy Faye Baker and Jim Baker, specifically Tammy Faye. Is coming out in the movie theater. Now, if you're watching this 6 months from now, then that's old news. But Reverend Steve Peters, who was interviewed by Tammy Faye Baker on her show, Tammy's House Party on PTL, back in 1985. It was a very riveting conversation. And he was a guest on our show dealing with HIV and AIDS, a gay pastor. And that was breaking news back in the 80s, of course. And she was one of the first to do an interview with him in that religious environment. And it was riveting. And this movie has an actor playing Reverend Steve Peters actually in it. Reverend Peters was a guest on our show last week. If you missed that episode, because everybody's talking about, you can see Jessica Chastain on all the talk shows now, and Andrew Garfield, the actor who plays Jim Baker. They're all being interviewed on the major networks. And we had Steve Peters on last week. It was riveting. You can see that episode on our YouTube channel, Jim Masters TV, and all the other episodes. Marion Ross has been a guest from Happy Days. Next week, Don Most, who played Ralph Malph, is going to be with us on the Jim Masters Show Live as well. We're looking forward to that. Hi, Jim and lovely friends. Happy to be off today. So she's off. Kathleen Walker in New York City is off. That means my New York Mets are not home playing, because when they are, she's there working because she works with the New York Mets. Good to see everybody. Welcome to the show, gang. Good evening, Jim. Good to see you as well. Hello, Jim and lovely friends. Hello, Jim and Rodger Howard. Welcoming Rodger, Christopher Joseph as well. Lisa Rodriguez in the house. Hello, Lisa. Good to have you with us as well. She says, hi, all. Linda says, looking handsome as always, Jim. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. You guys are the best. You know how to make somebody feel real good. And good stuff, good stuff. So let's welcome our very special guest to the show. As I mentioned, let me show you that book again. It really is. Now, you don't have to be in the television business or the photography business or videography business to appreciate this incredible novel. It's just an amazing read. And we're very excited to have Rodger joining us here from Santa Clarita, California. Join me in welcoming him exclusively here for you on the Jim Masters Show Live. And again, thanks for all the great comments and everything that you guys have been sharing. Keep the chat coming. The chat is still open and available for you as well. Don't forget to leave a comment after on our YouTube channel. Now let's welcome him live from California. Rodger, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
How are you?
Oh, I'm doing good.
You're making the rounds, huh? This is exciting. Congratulations about this book. What gave you the inspiration, Rodger, to want to write this novel and sort of depict this story? And how much of Ron is Rodger?
Oh, boy. Well, let's take question one first. I worked, as you mentioned, 30 years as a news cameraman, photographer in LA. And for some reason, I started taking, I filled in a journal every single day of my career from day one, wrote down every story that I covered. At the end of the day, I would just write a little paragraph in my journal, you know, saying this is where I went, this is what I did. And after a while, I realized it was full of some pretty interesting stories. Now, when you go to a party or you go into a crowd and introduce yourself, generally people will ask, of course, what is it you do? And when you answer them with, I'm a news photographer, well, pretty soon you're surrounded by 3 or 4 or 10 people who want to know more. They want to know, what's the most exciting story you ever covered? Who have you met? You know, and after a while, people were saying you should write a book. You know, and my reaction was always, well, you know, how am I going to do that? That, you know, nobody's going to want an autobiography of some guy they've never heard of. So I came up with the concept that I should take some of these stories that people enjoyed hearing and weave them together in the form of a novel, create some interesting characters, and have them live the stories that I covered. And pretty soon, you know, social media played into it very much as well. At the end of the day, if I had done something particularly exciting, I would go on Facebook and I'd write down what it was. And sure enough, some of my friends who I know and some who I don't on Facebook would ask for more information. You know, did you take any photos? You know, tell us more about it. And so I realized that I did have, you know, plenty of interesting stories. So I went back through my journals and found the stories that I wanted to tell and looked them up, and one by one tried to put myself back in that place. What was I thinking? What was I feeling as I was covering that story? Because as a cameraman, you try to tell the story, obviously, with pictures for people who aren't there. With a book, you try to tell the story in detail for people who weren't there. You use words instead of pictures. And so that was kind of how it started. People asking, you know, for more, and people encouraging me to write a book.
So what was the process like of actually writing it? I think that's a great idea to create the character. How much of Ron and Rodger are together? How much of Rodger's in Ron?
Well, Ron is considerably younger and better looking than Ron. But his experiences are pretty much what I experienced, and his emotions and his feelings I tried to recreate in him. He did. He was a pretty good guy, you know. The first chapter, you may not realize it. He's kind of aloof, but as the book goes on, you come to realize he has some very serious emotions and feelings for the people around him.
Yeah. And I'm sure for you as well, talking a little bit about your background, same thing too. You've witnessed life at its best and at its worst, and you've had to document it and be artistic about it. And, you know, it always makes me think of the role of a doctor or a nurse, CMT, first responder, where, you know, they have a task at hand and they're seeing some extraordinary things, whether it's the birth of a baby or somebody extremely ill in a very urgent situation. And you have to maintain the cool, you have to maintain the respect, the integrity, and get the job done in a very quick amount of time. You're placed in those riveting situations that oftentimes just come at you out of the blue. You couldn't even script it. And you've been there at the most joyous of occasions and the most tragic of occasions as well. How did you first get into the industry? What was it about being a photojournalist. It's the combination of the videography with telling the story as a journalist through the use of the camera and your artistry. What first attracted you to the television industry and the news industry specifically?
Um, well, I obviously, as everyone else, I watched the news, and I thought that would be a heck of a job because you get to see something different every day. You aren't stuck in an office. You get to experience different things. And a news photographer, I've met presidents, senators, artists, actors, singers, performers, athletes, along with, as you said, some of the uglier scenes. But I mean, that was probably what first attracted me, was get out there in the street, and I knew that I was an adequate still photographer. I'd always had a camera and I always kept it with me, and I'd pull the car over and jump out and take a picture of something that I thought was interesting. So I always knew I had the interest in photography. And so when I went to school, took television and radio and just fell in love with it. And then the thought of, being out in the field was just, it was perfect.
Very exciting. What was the very first opportunity you had in the industry, the very first company or station you had an opportunity to work with?
I freelanced throughout Los Angeles. There are a number of stations as well as production houses, foreign language stations. I always tell people who want to get in the business, never turn down a day's work.
Yeah.
Even if they're paying you minimum wage, you're getting experience. And the guy that you're working for is pretty much in the same position you are. He wants to work his way up, and he's not always going to work for that little production house. He's going to work somewhere else if he gets his way and if he's any good. And he's going to remember the person who showed up, in the middle of the night, who worked hard, who was professional, and he's going to remember you. And he's going to call you later on to work for him when he's at a bigger station. And that's exactly what happened. People who I met, early on went to work for major TV stations and called me. And so before long, I got a staff job, and I was laid off, and then I got another staff job, and I kept that one for 25 years. So that's the advice I always give people, though.
You've spent over 30 years covering television news in Los Angeles as a photojournalist. And I know that one of the things that you believe is that while the profession, provides a videographer this wonderful opportunity to share these stories and experiences with the public, you really truly believe it also carries a tremendous responsibility as well, right?
Well, it does, because when you see when you see a news story on TV, you're seeing what, a minute and a half. And in that minute and a half, they're trying to compress an event that happened over hours or an entire day. So they're compressing and sanitizing and cleaning it up, and you don't get to see the ugly parts. The job of a videographer, of course, is to tell the complete story, but you really can't, because the ugly isn't in there.
Yeah.
You showed up at a scene and you were stepping over bullet casings and watching bodies being covered with sheets. That's not on the air. You don't see that on the news later on, but that's up here.
Right.
And that affects the person doing the job. And that's what I found over the years, is that you can tell the story as completely as you possibly can, but there's no comparison with actually being out there and covering it.
Does it become overwhelming? Was it sometimes you saw things that were unbelievable? Like, I can imagine, those who were on the scene at 9/11 having to cover that report. even as the buildings are coming down, whatever it may be, some really unbelievable things where it's very hard to just go home and sleep that night. That stays with you. I'm sure there are moments and stories that you've been a part of in telling the story that still stick with you even today.
Absolutely. I can't speak for 9/11. I wasn't there, but I'm sure those guys woke up for weeks or months afterwards in the middle of the night with some of the things they saw.
Yeah.
And certainly that's been the case with me and with my friends that I've spoken to as well. Things embed themselves in your psyche, and it's very, very hard to I heard the same thing about law enforcement, that after a while, they develop a thick skin, but at the same time, they're known for gallows humor and
Yeah.
different ways to cope with things that they see in their lives.
Had you ever thought over the years of switching gears and going into away from news and maybe going into sports, photojournalism or documentary or other areas that aren't as sometimes heavy as news can be?
Well, working for a TV station, like I said, I was pretty fortunate. I was able to do sports,
Doing it all, yeah.
Super Bowls and World Series and stuff like that as part of my job. Working for a sports station like ESPN would have been great. But jobs are hard to come by. And once you get one, it's pretty hard to walk away and say, I'm going to try to find one elsewhere. Guys have done it, but I had, little kids, and I wasn't about to, change horses in the middle of the stream.
Yeah, exactly. How would you say, Rodger, I pretty much probably know the answer to this, but for the viewers watching around the world, how would you say the job of a photojournalist changes a person?
Well, hopefully you become more able as a photojournalist. You get better at it as you go along. And as we touched on earlier, you have to toughen yourself up. You're going to see very ugly things. You're going to show up at a fire as they're pulling somebody out who's completely burned head to toe. And you're going to see that. You're not going to want to take pictures of it because you know that it's not going to get on the air, but you're going to see it. And you better be ready to deal with it. You're going to show up at a freeway accident where cars have exploded and people's bodies are laying out on the freeway. You're going to see it. You're not going to like it, but you're going to see it. And so you better toughen yourself up.
Do you remember any particular stories that you had to cover that have stuck with you in any direction, whether they're tragic or beautiful?
Well, would you like me to talk about some that are in the book?
Yeah.
Okay. Over the years, I've won 5 Emmy Awards.
I know.
And one of those was the story that we did in 3 parts of a woman who suffered from a condition called essential tremors, where she couldn't perform everyday tasks of putting on makeup or tying her shoes or anything like that. She had terrible shakes. And there was a doctor who told her he'd be able to fix it. And so the first part of the story, we went to her house and we watched how she functions during the day and the many things that she wasn't able to do. Part 2, we interviewed the doctor and we actually shot the surgery where he actually drilled through the top of her skull and placed an electrode. I'm not going to try to sound like a medical expert because I'm not, but he placed an electrode inside her skull and set the proper settings of intensity and placement of the electrode to where she was awake for the entire procedure. And she could handle a pen and he said, that's the perfect spot. So then he left it there and placed a control box in her back where she could turn it on or turn it off if she was going to go to sleep. And part 3 was a few weeks later. We went back after her wounds had healed and watched how she controlled the device, and she was able to function almost normally. And a story like that, you know, you're kind of glad that you are able to bring that to people.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. And we do actually have proof of some of those Emmy Awards. There we go. Yeah, huh?
I had them surgically attached.
You had them surgically attached to the
did,
ears, and you could use those probably as the earbuds too tonight.
Yeah.
They get great
That would
reception.
be good.
Some shots of you out in the field doing your thing.
The B-2 bomber.
Oh, that's what that is?
That
Yeah.
was the introduction of the B-2 bomber, yes.
That is really, really cool. I mean, you do get a chance to really witness life in extraordinary ways. This is with Bob Hope, right?
Right. That was at his house. He had, I don't know how many holes, a golf course in the backyard. He was out there playing.
Was it for a special like profile on him or something he was doing?
I'm trying to remember because it's been a number of years. It was,
Yeah.
I'm not sure what it was about.
Yeah, but something quite special to have that opportunity.
We get to meet, you know, all kinds of people.
Yeah. Cameras, the cameras have changed over the years too. They've gotten, I think, a lot lighter and smaller now, right? I mean, the ones 30 plus years ago you had to carry were like little army tanks.
Yeah.
How are your shoulders all these years later?
Well, I kept my chiropractor in business. That's yeah. You'd have the camera on one shoulder, and then on the other shoulder, you would carry a recording deck with a tape in it. And so you'd have to turn the recording deck on and then put the camera on your shoulder. And altogether, I'm guessing it was 50 pounds or more. And so trying to chase after somebody or a story on the street was a young man's occupation. I wouldn't do it now.
The chasing part without the tripping, right? Exactly. It's really amazing. You've got another shot here too, which is actually on the cover of the book. Is that you?
That is me. That's a fire that I wrote about in the book in Rules of Malibu, where there was a lot of damage done and a very windy situation. The door almost blew off my truck, and it's quite an adventure, something to read about.
Yes, absolutely. Let's talk about the characters. You know, I mentioned Ron in the book as well, of course, but how did you come up with the characters? What was the character development like for you, that process?
Well, many of the stories happened quite a number of years ago. In the book, it's all within a 1 year period. So, I mean, this guy is hit with bam, 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 bam.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of stuff over a very short period of time that was really not. But so when I looked back at some of these stories, I was obviously much younger. And so I made him much younger. And the people that he interacted with and eventually became friends with, I'm not sure where they came from. He was between girlfriends, and he met this lovely woman and fell for her, and so the stories of their relationship. I mean, the characters are the most fictitious part of the book. The stories are, like you said, almost 100% true.
Some interesting questions coming in actually from our live viewers watching around the world. Jane in Sweden, this is kind of interesting. I guess you can't really do it because you're on the scene and you got to cover it. But she had asked, coming in from Sweden, she says, is there anything that you've been so emotional about as you're trying to cover it that you weren't able to do the work, meaning it got so overwhelming, or that assignment was just too close to home, or whatever it may be, where it just becomes too much to complete?
I'm going to have to say no.
That's what I would figure. Yeah.
But there were some very, very emotional stories. One that I write about is there was a fire at an apartment complex in LA that turned out to be the deadliest fire in the history of the city. And we were there from the beginning. And at the end, I just held on to my reporter, and, you know, it was tough.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. How has the business changed from your vantage point? I've certainly seen, the changes that have happened in the industry, much more digital. There's the whole online portion now that didn't necessarily exist. How have you seen it change? In what ways do you feel it's changed for the better? And maybe some ways where it hasn't necessarily changed for the better?
Okay, well, when I started, some of the stations were still hanging on to the cameraman, the reporter, and the sound man. So you had a 3-person crew. Then the sound man pretty quickly went away because, as I mentioned, you had all this equipment. You had some over your shoulder, and, so there was a lot to carry. But as things got lighter, they took away that extra person, and you were expected to be the sound man as well as the cameraman. So then that gave you a 2-person crew, and now it's down to 1. Along with the digital age, people in school these days are being taught, as I was, to do everything. You work the camera, you edit, you write the story, you appear on air, do it all. But in my time, I hate to say that, but in my time, when you got out of school, you chose which direction to go. You were going to be the cameraman, you were going to be the editor, you were going to be the writer, or you were going to be the talent. Now you're going to do all those things. So they experimented, and I deal with it in the book. They experimented over the last few years with what they call multimedia journalists, and they would be sent out with a little bit smaller camera and a little bit more compact equipment, but all by themselves, to shoot the story, report the story, write the story, and appear on air. And some of them have been very successful. Some have been really good at it, and a lot of others have failed. And plus the fact that many of us saw it as pretty risky, because when you head into, say, a high crime area to cover a story, you don't want to go in there just one person, particularly someone who has the look of a reporter, maybe a young, attractive woman dressed nicely to appear on TV is going to be sent into a high crime area to report on a crime all by herself. I didn't really think that was a great idea. Like I said, some of it has worked out, but as you can tell by watching TV news now, to some degree they've backed off. It hasn't been widespread. They're still they're sticking with the reporter and the cameraman.
Yeah,
I think they should.
Right. Probably some of the smaller stations will do that one-man band operation. I had to do that once when I was the Connecticut bureau chief for a television station in New York. And I lived probably about an hour and a half from the area that I had to cover, which was towards Fairfield County, Connecticut. And it was, Jim, first of all, find the story, then get the story set up, make the appointment, come with the camera, set the camera up, ask all the questions first and have the interviewee standing on the other side of the camera and get, that shot where you don't see me, you just see them, but you just hear the questions, and then tell them, don't answer the questions yet. Oh no, actually, I'm going to ask the questions, answer them, and then I'm going to reverse the camera, do the reversal, and then have it on me. So it will be edited where you'll see me asking the question, and then we'll see your answer. And they'll, at first, when they weren't used to that, they'd be like, I don't understand this. How is this going to work? You're going to ask the question and I'm going to answer it, but you're not on camera. And then you're going to do a reversal. Well, I have to stand there and you get sort of the angle of the back of my head, and then it's looking at you. And
we did that. We do that too.
The reversal.
Yeah. So, ask the question twice and the reporter nods and all of that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's how they do it on all the shows too. The talk show, not the show like this, but some of the evening magazine shows and things of that nature. That's the technique. Exactly. You'll ask it twice. The book. Let's get back to the book, because the book is really fantastic. How long did it take to actually write the book, from the minute you put pen to paper, and then you knew, I'm done. I can edit the heck out of this thing forever. I can rewrite. I can move characters around. Yeah. But when did you know you were done, and what was that whole process like?
Well, from the time I said, I think I'm actually going to write a book, until it was finished, was 10 years.
10 years, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I kept the journals. And so it was a process of, what am I going to do with these? I have these great stories, and that I've written down, and people enjoy hearing them, and people are encouraging me to write a book. And like I said, when it occurred to me, I'll make it into a novel, then that was a big step, because I said, okay, well, now I know what I want to do. So then I came up with the characters and put the stories in a particular order so that they would flow. And then actually sat down from that moment to the end of editing was 10 years.
That's fantastic.
The first 5 of it, I was working full time. So I didn't devote full time to writing until after I quote unquote retired.
So you had started it while you were still working full time, sort of juggling both, huh?
I would come home and spend about an hour just kind of organizing stuff and coming up with ideas. But then after I retired, my wife produced a documentary called The Weight of Honor.
Yes.
Dealt with the families of seriously wounded veterans coming back from the war and how the families change. And that was a heavy duty process that I became the director of photography on that. So that took some time after I retired. But yeah, the whole process, 10 years.
I also heard you're a diehard Dodgers fan too, and a jazz aficionado.
The Giants lost today, so we're good.
4 children, 3 grandchildren. Any of them in the industry at all?
Actually, my son is graduating from Syracuse University.
Good school for that,
on Sunday, cinema. And his older brother, one of his older brothers, graduated from Cal State Northridge with a degree in cinema a few years ago. And he's getting his feet into the industry. Both of them are. And I have an older son who's a sheriff's deputy in Los Angeles. And I have a daughter who is living in Nashville and has my grandson and my granddaughter live there. So that's the bunch.
That is fantastic. So some sort of following in the footsteps of getting into the creative arts, and that's really, really cool. That's great to see. Congratulations too on all of that. Now, has the wacky husky named, is it Loki or Loki?
Loki. He's outside right now.
He's outside.
You never know when he'll decide to speak up.
Oh, well, I tell you, this audience loves food and they love animals. So if it comes jumping on your lap and
Yeah.
start licking your face, that's fine. They love that here. It's when it's live
Today's
television,
his
live
birthday.
anything.
He's 3 today.
3 years old,
Yeah.
really? What
And
kind of dog?
he's a husky.
Oh, yeah, that said
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
got to tell you, huskies are not like any other dog, which we had no idea. We had no idea when we got him 2 years ago. We
Yeah.
thought, oh, he's a cute little dog, but they're feral beasts.
They really, really are. Alessandra in North Carolina is asking, what is the most interesting story you wrote about in your book? But that's really hard to tell, right?
It's
They're
up to the
all,
reader, you
yeah,
know.
yeah.
There's some that you just shake your head. I'll tell you one. A woman is a manager of an apartment building, a 100-year-old apartment building near downtown LA, East Hollywood. And she's been a manager of the apartment for a couple of years, and they're redoing the apartment. So she's cleaning the building from top to bottom. She goes down into the basement where there's a ballroom, and behind a wall she finds a dusty old cabinet that she had never seen before. She'd never been in that room really before. And so she pulls the cabinet out and she starts going through it, and she says, wow, I'm finding all this 100-year-old, 70-year-old stuff in here. This is pretty cool. And then she finds a couple of black doctor's satchel bags, and she opens them up, and each one has a mummified baby in it.
Mm.
And so it becomes a homicide investigation. It becomes an investigation of, obviously, who did they belong to? When did they live there? What were the circumstances? It's just a very fascinating story that people will like reading about.
That's really amazing. Again, some of the things that when you're covering news and covering day events, I think even I say it too, just in watching it or having been in the industry, the day today tops what went on yesterday sometimes.
Right.
And you're like, just when you think you've seen and heard it all, don't say that too loudly because tomorrow might top it, right?
Exactly. You can't imagine some of the things. You can't imagine what's going to happen tomorrow.
Yeah, yeah. Like I was gonna say, you've seen people in all different levels of anguish and whatever it may be. As we were saying, so would you say all the stories are true, but the names have been changed?
That's pretty accurate, yes.
Yeah.
Very little embellishment, very little.
Kind of like they used to do on what is it, FBI and some of those other 70s cop shows.
Mm-hmm.
The stories are true, just the names have been changed.
Right.
Now, some of the other incredible stories, people are asking about some of the stories that you covered, if you've covered some of those California fires and things of that nature. But in addition to that, the earthquakes to O.J. Simpson to the LA riots and so much more. But you don't specifically write about those in the book itself. Tell us about that.
Because there have been books about the riots. There have been specials about the riots.
Yeah.
There have been books and movies and miniseries about the O.J. Simpson trial. I spent 9 months of my life on the O.J. Simpson trial. I have lots to say about it,
Wow.
but nobody wants to read any more about that. Everybody knows enough. What else? The earthquake. Again, there's been hours and hours of video and news about the earthquake. So I didn't feel like I needed to write about that. I can tell you though, living in Santa Clarita, I was on the morning news crew at the time on the morning show. Had to be to work at 4:30, and the earthquake occurred, I believe, 4:31. I had just pulled into the parking lot at the station, the parking structure, and my car started to shake and concrete was falling around me. And, obviously we got our wits about us and spent the next 3 days covering the earthquake. But the point is, I lived in Santa Clarita. It was a 30-minute drive to work. And the bridge that collapsed of the 14 freeway merged to the 5, I had driven under that bridge 15 minutes before it collapsed. So,
Wow.
yeah,
Somebody you had an angel on your wings that day. I remember that. Was that the 1989?
That was 1994.
That was 94.
January, I believe, 16.
And 89, that's when, wasn't it when they were live with the World Series and Candlestick Park started shaking and Al Michaels was on ABC and said, I think we've got an earthquake. And the double-decker highways collapsed then too, right?
That's correct.
Oakland and in through there.
Yeah, and I spent, we
San
got on
Francisco.
the plane and I spent 2 weeks up there covering the Mission District. Yeah.
Yes.
So there were a lot of stories there. And yeah, it's an incredible job. And it's different every day. And you meet different people and you do interesting things, but you better be ready for some tough stuff.
The book itself, what do you hope? And I love the name, and it's so perfect. Focus. It's ideal. When you came up with the name, I mean, did you have a drawing board with lots of different names and like, I'll try this one now, that doesn't work now, this one, and then ended up with Focus? How did you come up with the name for the book?
I think it's the second name. Maybe there may have been a third one. The first one I remember was Living the Dream, because for some reason I got in the habit, a friend would come up and say, hi, how are you? I'd say, I'm living the dream.
Yeah.
You really are.
Yeah.
But Focus, yeah, I like double meanings. And you obviously focus your camera, and at the same time, you try to keep your life in focus.
Exactly. And that sometimes is easier said than done on many occasions, especially when you're out there. I mean, did you have situations where you were called in the middle of the night and had to jump out of bed, grab the camera and go?
All the time. The last 12 or 15 years, I was able to take the news truck home with me at night because of the distance that I lived from the station. It worked to their advantage. If there was something that happened late at night or early in the morning, they could call me and I could hop in and go. And quite a few times it happened. I mean, after a while, they discovered it cost them a lot of money to do that. So you know, it had to be a really big story. But, you know, if a plane went down or something like that, and I was the closest crew, yeah, they would call me.
You were there, right, on the scene, seeing life as it's happening, which is extraordinary. I mean, it's as you know, demanding and unpredictable as it is, you probably wouldn't have wanted to do anything else, right? You saw life in so many different ways that not everybody gets to experience. Yeah,
I can't imagine for myself. I can't imagine doing anything else. But what I say to people about my history of how I ended up writing the book, no matter what you do, you've got stories that nobody else has. You know, when you go to a party, people are talking, people are telling stories. I just met somebody the other day, that this interesting person, or I was on the train and somebody did this, or I saw somebody get beat up. Whatever the case may be, write it down. Make yourself notes. Take a journal, because your life is unique to you. And someday, that collection of stories, you may look at that and say, you know, I have enough here to write a book about.
Do you see yourself writing another one?
You know, we'll see how this one does. If there's demand for it, there certainly are enough stories. I do have in my file stories that were not in this book, but could have been. So, you know, should there be another book, there certainly are enough stories for that.
Mm. What do you hope the reader is left with this book, Rodger? You know, there's always it's interesting whenever there's art created, whatever it may be, it's all a matter of interpretation and the little nooks and crannies and things that people pick from it and then relate to it themselves. But for you, Is there an overall hope as far as what you hope people are left with? Are they to be entertained, to think about life, to think about how we treat one another? All of the above?
Okay. All of the above.
All of the
Yeah.
above.
I think the audience for the book could be anyone. People not in the news business are going to read it and they go, "Really? You did that? You saw that? Really?" And I would say, "Yeah." People in the news business would read it and they'd say, "Yep, yep. I felt the same thing. I felt the same emotion. I felt the same way." So I think the book's for anybody.
Yeah. Have you been, what's the response been so far to people who have read it? I imagine, the feedback is quite rewarding when you hear people tell you different things that they pick out and different things that really moved them in reading a book that you've penned.
Yeah. I haven't had any negative response. Of course, people could just, I don't want to say what I think,
Yeah.
but the response has been very positive.
Yeah, that's fantastic. What would you say to somebody that's considering going in this business now, that's, studying it, and they want to do what Rodger Howard has done so beautifully all these years?
Well, again, I tell people, don't turn down a day's work. Work hard, show them that you have what it takes, and it's still a good career. I think there have been major cutbacks. I don't think the benefits and the pay may be as good as they were at one time, but it's still very rewarding. Just as any type of what you might consider art, you get to, as a photographer, you're in charge of what people see. And so it's a responsibility, and it's a chance to demonstrate your talent. And that's it's a very important thing that you can't take for granted.
No, you really, really can't. And it's beautifully said from somebody who's done it all these years. And again, revered in the industry and highly regarded. I imagine some of our audience is excited about the part in the book where I read that Ron meets this woman of his dreams. And what that story is going to be like, what that relationship's like, and trying to balance it all, huh?
Well,
dedicated to journalism.
In an ideal world, we'd be casting those parts for Hollywood, and the question would be, who's going to play Ron and who's going to play Sandra?
Right. Now, which brings me to the thought of, is there that possibility of this becoming something along those lines?
Do you know
Is that a hope?
Of course. I think, it's just me talking, but I think it would be a hit. I think the adventures, there's always movies about doctors, and there's movies about, firemen, policemen, detectives, this, that. But the few movies that have been about news cameramen have all sucked.
Yeah.
And this one, I think, would be much more realistic and less pandering to, I don't know, I'm not going to say, but
commercial, the commercialization of things.
I think it could be done very well.
Yeah, exactly. The movie network, as hell not going to take it anymore. It's not too far from reality in some ways.
No. And broadcast news, if you've seen broadcast news.
Yes, broadcast news as well.
Yeah, that one hit us. That was right on the money.
Yeah, absolutely. Toby, who's in Encino, California. Well, Linda says, thank you for sharing your life story with us, and please come back to the show. Toby's in Encino. She said, you ever thought of working? Have you ever thought of working in forensics?
Have I ever thought of working in forensics? Uh, yeah, I mean, I watch CSI just like everybody else. It sounds exciting. It sounds great. It would involve going back to school for what, 3 or 4 more years, and there are probably very few jobs. But wow, that sure sounds great. Is that what she does?
Yeah, I was going to say, Toby, the interest there is quite interesting. Tell us about, if you're doing that in California there in Encino. I just want to mention the Emmy Awards, 5 Los Angeles area Emmy Awards, and 3 Golden Mics, and lots more rewarded for your expertise and your tenacity and getting the job done through it all. Real quickly, what would be one of the more riskier? I mean, the picture with the fire, that's pretty risky. You probably felt the heat, I mean, of the flame coming at you. Are there a few other times when you're like hanging off a bridge or off a cliff? I mean, just in these really perilous, or in the middle of moving traffic to get the shot, just you're in these shots where you've been told to go there, or you have to go there, or you find yourself there to get that shot.
Well, again, it's not in the book, but I did cover the riots. And at the time, I was the helicopter photographer. And that was before the day of what they call a steady cam, a West cam, remote controlled camera that they have on the exterior of the helicopter that the photographer would use, a joystick or something inside and never have to brave the exterior. What we did was we would strap ourselves into the helicopter and take the door off and step outside and stand on the skids of the helicopter. Believe it or not, that's what we did.
Yes.
And so for the duration of, the first couple of days of the riots, I was on the clock for 56 continuous hours. We landed, fueled up, changed pilots, went back up. And at a couple of different points, we looked down and saw little flashes of light. And my reporter at the time was a retired LAPD officer, sergeant. And he said, those dots we're seeing down there? He said, if they're lines, he said they're gunshots. If they're lines, it means they're parallel to the ground. If they're dots, they're aimed at us. And fortunately, we weren't hit. I think we may have been grazed once or something, but the helicopter survived and we all survived. But yeah, I mean, looking back, what was I thinking?
Hanging off the side of the helicopter, and I bet your wife and family probably were living on the edge a little bit too, right? It's almost like being married to a police officer. He goes out there to cover these things, and literally anything can happen, right?
Right. And I think maybe the technology is a little different today, but I used to say, you're looking at what's happening in a little 2-inch black and white screen. And so you're detached from it. And when you're looking through the viewfinder, you're in control of what's in that viewfinder, but at the same time, it's just a picture. And so it's easy to separate yourself from whatever danger there might be.
Right, exactly. And like I said, you've seen it all. The book itself, is the book available at Amazon? Where can people find Focus?
It's available at Amazon. It's available at barnesandnoble.com. And we're hoping that there'll be a paperback soon. I'm told there will be. I don't have a date for it, but right now it's a nice hardcover.
Which actually is nice, because that's kind of almost old school in a way, because sometimes things are paperback and then people want the hardcover feel is a little more substantial. So that's fantastic. We just want to show it again up close and personal. There it is.
There it is.
Let me ask you something. Holding that book and holding these Emmys, would you say the feeling is sort of similar? I mean, this feeling of accomplishment and just a certain feeling you get out of it. I mean, both of those are your babies. The Emmys are from the result of the work, and you're being rewarded. And the reward is this book that you've penned and published that people are going to read and connect with. You seem as proud holding that book as those fantastic
Yeah,
Emmys as well, which is a beautiful thing to see.
I would think so. Sure. It takes a while before you find something in your life that maybe you can do that everyone in the world can't. And so those are the kind of things that you cherish and you don't take for granted. The Emmys, absolutely, because you're voted by your peers. I've judged them before, and you pick out excellence and you vote for who you think should win. And so to be honored that way is a wonderful thing. And then the book, I guess the jury's still out how much of a success it will be, but I didn't write it to get rich. I didn't write it to be a bestseller. I wrote it because it was inside of me and I wanted to share some stories. So we'll see where it goes.
Absolutely. And there may be another book in the offing, folks. Stay tuned for that. Just want to show you a couple of the comments coming in here. Kathleen Walker, who's watching in New York City, says, thanks for being here, Rodger. Enjoy listening. Alessandra, North Carolina, is saying, thank you, Rodger, for all the stories. And Toby in Encino, California, says, Dennis Quaid can play your part.
Wow. I've been told that.
I guess there was a little bit of a resemblance there. That's right, huh? How about Jane in Sweden says she wants to see the dog, the husky. She loves the animals. Next, what are some of the things that you still want to do that you have on that list, or are you just letting things ride as they come, Do you have things going forward? You're now retired, of course, from the television news business as a photojournalist. 30 plus years you've put in with this illustrious career, now a published author. Are there other things that you would like to do as well, Rodger?
I don't know if I'm a restless soul or what, but I have started another book that's somewhat different for people in the business. And if there are any people in the news business watching, I'd like to write a collection of your most interesting, funny, scary stories, experiences, things that you've done. Anonymously, okay, so that if I just had 100 stories, and I already have, I think, 50, just a light little book of people's actual experiences in the news business, and I would love it if they'd send them to me. I'd publish a little collection of them.
That's a great idea. That's a really terrific idea. I like that idea. That I'm sure a lot of people will be coming up with lots of thoughts and ideas and things that probably will even surprise you. Like, gee, I thought I saw and did it all.
Everybody's different. Everybody has different stories, and they're all great.
How about covering monumental things like the Olympics and things of that nature? When the Olympics were in Los Angeles, did you get involved in any of that?
No, not really.
Or musical events, major musical events.
Sure, I've done the Emmys, I've done the Oscars, I've done the MTV Music Awards. What else? Music events. Well, concerts. Sure, yeah. I've done Prince in concert, Beach Boys. Oh gosh, you name it.
Incredible. Yeah.
Yeah.
Incredible.
And,
yeah. Really amazing. Mary Bishop in Florida says, thanks, Rodger. This was a wonderful conversation. And Joan Sandoz says, Rodger, thanks for sharing your life. Sherry Larson says, your book sounds like a fantastic read. And thank you for sharing your experiences with us, Rodger. So a lot of people are going to be going out and getting the book. Again, it's available at Amazon, right?
Or BarnesandNoble.com. I'm not sure it's in the stores, but it's definitely online.
So that's fantastic, and we want to show that that book again. We have the photo here again. Congratulations on this, Rodger. I know it's been a labor of love, and I like that you use that particular photo. I mean, it just shows you what the work is really like and what it entails. And I wish you great success and a lot of luck. Now, it's just for folks tuning in late. That's the photo on the book, which comes from the real action photo of the real guy doing it. Our guest tonight, Rodger Howard. Really incredible. One more comment coming in here. You should seek out work with the Get Together Foundation of the Wild Honey Foundation, great music events. Have you thought of doing stuff freelance still in the videography world?
Oh, I have. I have my own camera, and
have camera will travel.
Sure, if the right gig comes along.
That's it. This was terrific, Rodger. Thanks for all the time, truly, and not only talking about this great book and the riveting stories in the book with all the characters, but also how it connects with your life and some of your own experiences, as well as you've covered, events as they've happened. And really, it's just something that not everybody gets a chance to do. And I see more work coming out of you that we'll be looking for that name. Novelist Rodger Howard. Thanks for joining us, Rodger. This was really terrific, and I hope the show met whatever expectations you had and that you enjoyed the time with me and the viewers as much as I certainly have with you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, and thank you, everyone.
Is there a website? Do you also have a website or anything too?
I wish I did.
Yeah. The TV station had their website, but yeah, you didn't need one of your own when you with K whatever.
There's a Twitter page, Focus a Novel.
Focus a Novel. That's right. Absolutely.
But no, I don't have a website.
And he's west of the Mississippi, folks, where all of the stations start, or most of the stations start with K. Yep. I am east of the Mississippi, where most of the stations start with W, and the Mississippi River is that dividing line.
Exceptions, but yeah.
Except for a couple, KYW in Philadelphia, KDKA in Pittsburgh. There's a few Ks here, but not a lot. A couple more final comments coming in. They're just saying thanks for joining us. Great show. Thank you, Rodger. Very interesting show from Jane in Sweden. Toby is saying thanks for joining us as well. And good stuff. Good stuff. Danielle 48. Welcome, Danielle. Welcome to the show, Jim Master Show. She says, did you ever fall while holding the camera?
I'm going to give you up, Danielle.
Oh, you know who that is, huh?
My daughter.
That's your daughter?
Yep.
I worked with a Russ Fortier in New York at public television. Same spelling, too.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
And he's a photographer also. How uncanny.
She knows very well that I have fallen and hurt myself very badly. And thank you for bringing that up, dear.
We call that the love of family. That is funny. We welcome everybody to subscribe to our YouTube channel that you're watching the Jim Masters Show live series on, which is Jim Masters TV, and click that notification bell so you never miss any of our live episodes, our surprise pop-up shows, and everything else. And if you enjoyed this episode with my very special guest, retired and renowned television news photojournalist, as well as published celebrated author, Rodger Howard, give this a thumbs up on our YouTube channel. We would love that. And leave a comment on the YouTube channel as well. And we're back tomorrow night with more great action and guests of all kinds coming up. So stick with us for that. Rodger, again, thank you very much for joining us tonight. This was really, truly a pleasure. And I liked talking a little shop with you, too, because I can relate to, I know what you've done and how you've done it, and it doesn't come easy. So hats off to you for everything that you've done in the industry.
Thank you so much. Anytime.
You're very welcome. You take care, Roger. Have a good night, okay?
Good night.
Now, as I say to all those guests, go stretch those legs and get the circulation going. And we have one last person here that wants to wish you well and say goodnight, who joins us at the end of the show. Mr. George Burns is in the house.
Oh, yeah.
You never covered an event where George Burns was at it, did you?
Did.
You did.
Absolutely.
I'm sure you did. Well, he said you did. He said you did good, kid. I know. Whenever I whip out the George Burns at the end, everybody laughs and they're like, I love it.
Love George.
Levity. You need levity to be in these industries. Lots of it. And Tums. Thanks, Roger. Have a good night. You take care, okay?
Good night. You too.
Bye-bye now. Celebrated television news photojournalist and published author Rodger Howard, live from Santa Clarita, which is just north of Los Angeles. He's worked in, which is the second largest television market in the entire world. New York, #1, LA, #2. So he was in the thick of it for well over 30 years, covering the stories with the reporters and, hanging out of helicopters on cliffs, probably even hung off the Hollywood sign once or twice, whatever it takes to get the shot and to get the story, and really, really accomplished. Again, the book is available at Barnes & Noble, as well as Amazon and places where you can find books. And it really is fantastic. He's been doing it for a long time, and he's moved on to writing, which is terrific. Again, it is the tale of the intrepid news photographer like nothing you've read before. The exciting novel is based on true life stories of an experienced news videographer named, in this case, Ron Sharp. Ron's career has highs and lows, grinding boredom, heart-racing excitement, sometimes all in the same day, with beauty, heroism, tragedy, and evil all part of the job. And that's just a little snippet of what you can expect from this riveting book, Focus. And again, somebody who's earned his keep. He's done it all in a very, very unpredictable, ever-changing, and demanding business. And really a pleasure to chat with him today. There he is again at the home of Bob Hope as well. And of course, he has, I'm sure, a broadcasting scrapbook like I do, filled with thousands of memories, thousands of hours logged, and thousands of stories to be told. Let's take a look at some more of our comments before we head out. I do want to show you that just a little preview here, folks. We've got some amazing guests coming up. Tomorrow, from Back to the Future, look who we have on the show. We've got Don Fulolov. Don Fulolov is amazing. You know him. He was the actor in Back to the Future. You can see all of this on our YouTube channel. On Saturday afternoon, we have renowned singer and songwriter and actress Shelley Lubin's going to be with us. And then live from Buenos Aires, yes, in Argentina, we have the International Celtic Choir joining us here on the show. And then on Monday, we have from the National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences, the foundation, we have the foundation's chairman and president, Doug Mermott, here. That's on Monday. That's going to be incredible. And then we have coming up on Tuesday, we have Robin Wiley, former soap opera actress. She was on One Life to Live, Another World. She played Maggie Corey. She's been in countless TV shows and movies, and she's dealing with stage 4 cancer. And it's been an amazing story, and it's been well documented in the news. And she's very excited about sharing her story with us, her story of struggle, her story of triumph, as she still deals with stage 4 cancer. Again, a beloved actress on the soap operas. You know her well, I'm sure, in all the soap operas and television shows and movies. And she's here to open up about her story coming up next week. And then we also have Donnie Most. Donnie, of course, played Ralph Malph on Happy Days on ABC. Now, we've had Anson Williams on the show who played Potsy. We've had Marion Ross on the show who played Mrs. Cunningham. If you didn't see those episodes, go back in the archives. You'll see them in the archives here on Jim Masters TV. Donnie Most is here next week as well. And then Freda Payne, extraordinary, legendary. She's a music legend. She's a singer extraordinaire. And she's excited to be here, and we're excited to have her here next week. Big week of incredible guests coming up here on the Jim Masters Show live. Really cool stuff. So let's take a look at some of our comments coming in, since we are a viewer-centric and very interactive show. Kathleen says, great show. Thanks, Jim. Was happy to listen in the middle of the work week. My pleasure. You learn something new on our shows too as well, don't you, gang? Thanks, Kathleen in New York City, and Sherry in North Carolina. Thank you, Jim, for another wonderful guest. My pleasure, as always. And Mary Bishop says, another wonderful show. Good night to you as well. And everybody watching, whether you're watching us live and you are watching us perhaps later on in the archives. Thank you, Jane. Thanks, Jim, for a great show. And good night, everyone, as well. And Alessandra, good night as well. Good to see you and everybody else who's watching us. And Blissful Angel is in the house. Blissful Angel is saying hello to Rodger's daughter, Danielle. And is Rodger still there? No, he's not. just the chair is there, but she loves him. And welcome. We're welcoming Danielle to the show as well. Good to have you with us, Danielle. And hopefully you'll watch us again. We would love that. We're on just about 7 days a week. And you can see all the past episodes on our YouTube channel, Jim Masters TV. And we'd love it if you and everybody watching would subscribe. That helps us big time. Another great show, Night All, from Christopher Joseph in Ohio. Good to see you, Christopher, as well. Thanks, gang. You are the very best from all around the world. We have the best viewers, the best audience watching live. And those of you who watch later on, we really appreciate you guys. Lisa Rodrigo says, thanks, Jim, so much. My pleasure, Lisa. We love when you're here as well. And thank you. I know you're a big supporter of the Jim Masters Show Live Entertainment Lifestyle Talk Show series. So we appreciate that as well. I think I just want to show, if Rodger's still looking, Danielle posted, love you. Love you. He's smiling. He put his glasses on for that. He loved it. All right, gang. Thanks for joining us here on the show. We appreciate all of you. I am your host, Jim Masters. Thanking you for your time this time. Till next time, we appreciate all of you being here. Keep spreading the word about this very special place. It's an entertainment show. It's a lifestyle show. It's a talk show. We throw in interviews. We throw in entertainment. We do lifestyle segments. We take you on location. We do pop-up shows. It's a good variety show. And we learn something new every day. And Danielle says, I will watch again. Thank you. Terrific. My pleasure. We welcome you. We welcome you. That is awesome. And Kathleen Walker in New York City says, have a great night and weekend, Jim. See you Monday. That means that the New York Mets are playing, right? You're going to be there at the Citi Field. Good night, all, and hugs. And Alessandra says, in North Carolina, you're the best host. Thank you very much. And as my father has always said, anytime anybody says something nice, please ask them to put it in writing and address it management. And Rodger would know what I'm talking about. And Sherry Larson says, good night, all. Sweet dreams, everyone. And thanks for all the great comments. Thank you, Lisa, as well. My pleasure. And again, thanks for your continued support of the Jim Masters Show Live. Great show as always, Jim. Hugs to you as well. Alessandra, thank you very much, gang. You're the best. Thanks for watching our Entertainment Lifestyle Talk Show series, the Jim Masters Show Live. We hope you have a great day, great night, great morning, whatever time it is around the world you're watching our show. And we will see you on the next one right here, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, live on the Jim Masters Show Live here on our YouTube channel. Show it some levity. Subscribe at Jim Masters TV. Have a good night. Thanks for being with us. We'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.